Hello, okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me, and here is my spoiler-free review of M3gan 2.0, directed once again by Gerard Johnstone. For those of you that have been following me for a while now will know I was disappointed by the first movie. It had such an interesting concept. Like, I was so excited for that original movie. To me, it kind of reminded me of an X-Files episode, and I just thought sort of the potential to have created some very effective, creepy horror with AI in that concept, within those ideas, was just incredible. And unfortunately, for me personally, M3gan was a massive disappointment. It was a movie that was very unsure of itself. It didn't quite know what it wanted to be. It was sort of reined in when it came to the violence and the horror. Like, it wanted to be a horror, but it was just too watered down for it to be effective as a horror. It was a little bit too goofy. So anyway, enough about the first movie, M3gan. Let's talk about its sequel, where I was somewhat intrigued by it. I haven't been incredibly enthusiastic or really looking forward to the movie because of the disappointment that I had with that first movie. But you've got a sequel, and the synopsis is: a new threat emerges in the form of Amelia, a military-grade android built using stolen M3gan tech. Amelia becomes self-aware and goes rogue, triggering a potential AI uprising. With the government and a shady billionaire involved, Gemma is forced to resurrect M3gan, whose consciousness survived in her smart home system to help stop Amelia. So, M3gan 2.0. There are things that I liked within this movie. There are certain moments and ideas that I liked within this movie, just like with the first movie. And one of those being is Ivanna Sakhno. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Apologies if it's incorrect. And she plays Amelia, this rogue robot, this rogue AI. And I just thought she was incredible in this role. Like, she looked amazing. There was, she's beautiful but creepy. And she's creepy because of the way she sort of brings the character to life through her performance. Like, just the way she carries herself, I just found it incredibly effective. And there are moments with her that are kind of creepy because of how she's bringing the character to life. But she's also a very beautiful woman playing this character of Amelia, this rogue AI. And I was getting, with this character, I was sort of getting kind of Species blended with Terminator. I was getting that vibe, and I was really digging it. And like, she just looked great. I mean, in the final act, she sort of suits up in this kind of metal armor. It's in the trailers, and it's the final showdown. And she's great. She is just great within, in this role. And she's great in this particular moment that I'm talking about. And it's a moment that has a very kind of, within the third act, this kind of the final showdown, it's a moment that has this kind of very 80s fantasy streak to it. Like, it goes pretty bonkers, and I dug it. I liked it a hell of a lot. But it's another moment, it's another aspect of this movie that, just like I'm going to sort of mention next, it's another one, it's one of many moments within this movie, or one of many aspects in this movie that kind of doesn't really amount to anything. Like, it's a good idea, the potential is there, or you'll get this kind of really cool moment, but it kind of just builds up to nothing, and it just fizzles out. And that, for me, was a very kind of reoccurring theme within this movie, for me, personally. Another good example of a moment that I really dug was, and mild spoilers here, very mild spoilers. I'll just get that out of the way with you, because I think potentially what I'm about to mention might be considered a mild spoiler for some. But it's a moment where our main characters go down into the basement and they find M3gan. She's sort of in this kind of old scrap-like body. And it's a moment that at first, for like a moment, like literally a second, there was an air of creepiness about it within the scene. And I was like, oh, just because of the way M3gan is revealed within this scene, the way that sort of the scene is framed, and sort of the design of M3gan in this shell. Like, it reminded me a little bit of a witch. And and it also reminded me a little bit of the movie Hardware. And it's within this moment, again, it kind of just, you could see the kind of the glimpse of potential that this movie had, especially when it came to the horror aspect. Like, there was potential there, and that was one of the most frustrating things about this movie. You know, she almost looked like this witch in a chair, you know, with the wires coming out of her head, and just from a visual perspective, from a design perspective, I was really digging it. And, you know, you get this moment with her and sort of with Katie, and it's just, yeah, there's this kind of air of creepiness about it, you know, from the way in which M3gan in this moment is brought to life through practical effects, which I really appreciate. You know, if you've been following me for a while now, you know I fucking adore my practical effects. But yeah, you know, just like a lot of the other moments in this movie, a lot of the other ideas, they kind of just sort of fizzle out, and sort of they just end up making room, really, or, you know, the moment sort of diminishes with what could have been, whatever it be, the horror. And it just sort of diminishes when that kind of the goofy humour sort of comes into play. And that is one of the aspects of this movie that I really disliked. And I disliked it about the first movie. It is the humour. The humour for me really doesn't work within these movies. It's a little bit too goofy. It's a little bit too silly, to the point where I'm not going, you know, I'm going to admit it. There are moments in this movie that I kind of chuckled, but that's because I kind of know what to expect now. And sort of, there are moments that were like, yeah, you know, it made me chuckle, but nothing sort of like laugh out loud. It was nothing incredibly funny within this movie. For me, it was just a little bit too cartoon-like and silly. And, you know, like I've said a couple of times now, you know, there's a lot of interesting ideas within this movie where you can kind of really see, as a result of these ideas, you know, the potential of what could have been. And maybe that's just personal preference, I don't know. I mean, I think the humour is going to work for a lot of people within this movie. The person that I went to see the film with actually really liked it, and I was the complete opposite, whereas it didn't really, you know, especially when it came to the horror, it didn't really do anything for me. And just like the issue I had with this movie, just like with the first, was, you know, it suffers with a little bit of an identity crisis. Yes, you know, this is definitely leaning more into sort of the action horror, kind of like Aliens, I suppose, and Terminator 2. But just the overall movie felt like a mishmash of goofy comedy, needless, pointless twists and turns. You've got themes around AI and parenthood with a dash of horror that just don't all come together to create one clean, focused experience. You know, you've got all those sort of different ingredients, whatever it be, the goofy humour, the needless, pointless twists and turns within its story that just was like, you know, it overcomplicates the experience, yet at the same time it's not a complicated experience. Like, you know, this is nothing complex or anything, but it just overcomplicated the experience to the point where it ended up feeling very dull and mundane. You know, it's a 2-hour movie and they could have easily have trimmed this down to around 1 hour and 30 minutes. It didn't need to be 2 hours. It needed a lot of meat trimming off it and just have a little bit more of an idea of the type of movie I feel they wanted to make. Like, yes, lean into the action, like that kind of aspect of it did remind me a little bit of Aliens, but it was never effective at really creating the horror in the first place, and so you just end up getting this kind of mishmash of different ideas and tones, and it doesn't really come together to create one sort of coherent, focused experience. You know, this just ended up being an incredibly messy experience, which is frustrating because you've got all the ingredients there within this concept, within the premise of this story, to create something that is very fun, yes, silly, and a little bit over the top. You know, you've also got something that has interesting ideas to explore around AI that could have just made this movie, made this experience. It could have made it not just a good old fun time at the cinema, but also relevant. Unfortunately, it just ends up being a mess. Like, this could have been a good old fun time at the cinema. The ingredients are there. I mean, you've even got a dash of, you know, practical effects here within the movie, and it just fails to fully come to life, for me anyway, personally. It's a movie that flirts with what it wants to be, especially with the horror aspect. Just like I felt with the first movie, it kind of flirts with the horror, and there are glimpses into a moment that could be effective, just like with the sequel here, moments that I've already mentioned, but it just kind of fizzles out. It's sort of diminished by sort of these other layers within the tone of the film, wherever it be the goofy humour. And the reason why it just doesn't work is because I feel like it just doesn't have this kind of one idea of what it wants to be, sort of this identity crisis that I'm feeling within the movie, and that's why it fails to work. And like the horror and the violence, I mean, it again, just like with the first movie, it all feels reined in. Like, you'll get a moment and then the camera will sort of just pan away, or it will just cut to a next frame, it will cut to a next shot, like someone's about to get killed and you'll miss it and you might see a splatter of blood. You know, there is this one moment where Amelia breaks the neck of someone, and I just love the way actually that scene transitioned over to another scene. But that was perhaps the most brutal this movie got, I felt. Perhaps I'm forgetting something when it came to the violence. Like, there is another moment, I suppose, with a robot and this kind of staff. But even that was sort of watered down and kind of reined in. Like, this is a 15 certificate over here in the UK, and for me, this was a very mild 15, a very watered down 15, like a few more trims here and there, like very slight trims. This could have easily have been a 12A movie, and I just feel like with the ideas, with the premise, with the concept, I feel like if they'd really lent in to the horror aspect and sort of the violence side of this movie, and sort of really kind of perhaps dug into those themes like they are touching on around AI and parenthood and all of that, you know, kind of in many ways there are resemblances to Terminator 2 to some degree, I suppose, you know, other than aliens. I mean, this could have been something. I mean, yeah, retain the humour, but I feel like the humour, and again, this could just be preference, personal preference, because this is a movie that's working for a lot of people. I mean, I believe when it comes to the general public, I am in a minority here when it comes to this movie, but it's just the way I felt. And I felt like maybe they could have lent more into a sort of edgier, darker sense of humour. And I think that might have been a little bit more effective for me. And just sort of touching on the violence for a moment, like, there was so much missed potential. Like, this is one scene, and I'm going to try and be as vague as I can about it, and that is, you've got Amelia and this character, and they're sort of trapped on this other side of the door, and you've got a main characters on the one side, and you've got Amelia and this other character, and Amelia just sort of creeps up behind this other character, and it's a death that happens off screen. Like, a lot of the deaths, or, you know, you get a lot of the quick edits, but you see a kind of a splatter of blood sort of over the window of this door, and I was just like, wow, like the potential that was wasted within that moment. Like, they could have used a practical effect where, you know, she grabbed the head of this character and just smashed it against the window. And I know that sounds extreme, I know that sounds kind of incredibly, you know, violent, but just that moment with a practical effect, I felt like would have played in to what it was they were flirting with or attempting to make or create with this movie. Because, you know, there is this kind of, especially during the third act, this is kind of bonkers 80s fantasy streak to it that I really dug, and it kind of would have played into that. You know, to have a scene where you had a death happen within the frame, using a practical effect, it kind of would have played into this 80s fantasy B-movie vibe that I was getting. But again, just like with every other aspect of this movie, it never fully comes to life. So yeah, I think I felt like this review has been quite passionate in the way that I've kind of spoken about it. Like, I don't know, I think my frustrations have really come through within this review because, you know, it's not one that I even hated. And I can just sort of respect and understand, you know, especially with the person that I went to see this movie with. You know, they really enjoyed it. And I could see that people are going to really enjoy this movie. Just for me, personally, it really kind of just needed to decide what it wanted to be. Stop flirting with what it could have been and sort of just go for it. And instead it kind of felt very dull, it felt very watered down, it felt very reined in. Instead they kind of overcomplicated, even though it isn't really complicated. You know, you've got all these kind of needless twists and turns with the story. It could have just been a straight up rogue AI going up against M3gan, you know, a more streamlined, focused experience. But instead, what they are very successful at doing within this experience, within the story, is actually zapping all the fun out of it. That is something they do very well. And it's like, the potential is there, but the fun is zapped out of it.
Or anyone who can stop her.
And I was intrigued by the experience. There might have been the odd moment that I actually chuckled, but that was because of how kind of just silly it was in moments. But as a whole, as one experience, it just felt very messy. It had an identity crisis, just like with the first one, where it wanted to be something, but it was just flirting with what it wanted to be, and it didn't really fully come together to create something that I thought was fun and thrilling and exciting and just a good old time at the cinema. The potential was there, and I felt like a movie like this with its premise could have been that, but it just didn't work for me. So they are my thoughts on M3gan 2.0, and I will be giving M3gan 2.0 they are my thoughts on the sequel to M3gan. But what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? I think a lot of you are going to disagree with me. Might agree on some points. I know the person that I went with who actually really enjoyed the movie still disagreed with some of my points, especially with it kind of feeling reined in. But I don't know. Let me know below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree? Let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review will be for Jurassic World Rebirth, one of my anticipated movies of the year. For those of you that have been following me for a while now will know I'm a massive fan of the Jurassic World movies. When I say Jurassic World, I mean I love the first Jurassic World. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the franchise because that first movie back in '93 was sort of one of the main movies that kind of gave birth, really fueled my love for film. It was my first ever cinema experience, and in fact, I am actually going to watch Rebirth back at the very place that I first had my first cinema experience. It's an independent cinema in Brecon, and I haven't been there since The Phantom Menace in 1999. I've got some fond memories with this independent cinema in Brecon of watching these movies like Space Jam and Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, and Phantom Menace, and obviously the very first movie that I saw on the big screen, Jurassic Park. So yeah, I am very sentimental like that, and I thought that it'd be cool to sort of revisit the cinema and watch a movie and just sort of go there and watch Jurassic World Rebirth, you know, with having seen my first movie, which was Jurassic Park, on the big screen at the exact same cinemas. So yeah, that will be my next kind of main cinema release review. I do have a retro review coming for Crack in the Planet. That is on the way. There's been so much going on lately with an illness that I came down with. I'm not sure if it was a chest infection or COVID. It was something. And then work has been crazy at the moment as well. So there's a lot of things sort of been getting in the way of me sort of making the videos that I want to make. But they are coming, just a little bit delayed. But I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that supported myself and the channel, whether it be liking, commenting, subscribing. It means an awful lot. I'm currently sat at the time of filming this video, I'm currently sat at 510 subscribers, and it will always overwhelm me that so many of you already, you know, do want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV, but it means the world to me. And just a big thank you to everyone that I've connected as well to my most recent video, which is my reaction to the announcement of Denis Villeneuve directing Bond 26. It's a video that's doing quite well at the minute, and so yeah, just a big thank you to everyone that's interacted with that channel, and to anyone that have actually subscribed to this channel because of that video as well. Thank you so much. So yeah, that's enough rambling from me. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.